Issues with our wireless. Imagine putting up a WDS with 10 different wireless access points and then someone deciding to run various code on it. They all deauth themselves and started a nice deauth attack. So we now have a CTF going on right next to our booth. There is a switch there. Go play around with it, have fun. Mr. Fowler, if we can add a couple extra switches to it. We do have, there he is, we do have Kali boxes, or Kali ISOs if you need one. There are rules of engagement, let's just put it this way, in this mod, this game server, just the server themselves, you can have fun. If you haven't played around with it yet, you can break into the Federal Reserve, you can actually get other players arrested. It's a good time to be had by all. It will be open through lunch and through the end of the day. A couple people have asked, can I get the slide deck? Can I get, where can I see these videos? And I want to, we talked about some people that really made this con a con. And there's two people that not in our company that named this con. And Bubba, you around? Yeah, just yell. Someone must have yelled horse or something. And Bubba, Paul Coggin and Adrian Crenshaw were the ones that helped us at DerbyCon 3 years ago. We were going to call this ExploitCon, and I think it was Adrian that said, well, you're the Show Me State. It should be ShowMeCon. All right, Adrian, it's ShowMeCon. Take the compliment. Bubba said it. Well, Bubba's not in here. Bubba ain't getting the... Oh, there's Bubba right there. Okay, well, it was both Adrian and Paul. When I first started in this, you met my good friend Ralph. All of us in this field kind of have what we joke about it in our company. We all have cybersecurity crushes, and mine was Adrian. And if you've never been to Adrian's site, for many, many years, this guy is just infatuated with new things. And he would and tell me if I'm wrong on how you do it, he would just play with stuff, but he would turn on the camera and say, this is how I'm doing it. And I learned more from IronGeek.com than I learned anywhere. And I guess it's been a couple of years now. He's changed. He's with Trusted Sec, a great a competitor of ours that we have mutual respect to each other. But Adrian has gotten into recording. And he is recording every con he goes to. And we're talking, how many cons a year? About 20, okay? He is actually, for here and one of our sister cons next week, Circle City, he is taking vacation to be here. So please give a round of applause to Adrian for making this all possible. He doesn't get paid for any of this. As well as, I hope you guys have enjoyed the speakers. Speakers have been amazing. We had some really good submissions this year, and we had to turn a few of them down, not because they were bad, because we didn't have enough space. One of our main criteria is that you get something out of it for your own organization or for your own professional development. That's what we're looking for. And all of these people, we researched. If I didn't know them personally, if Ben didn't know them personally, we researched them and we made sure that they were the high quality that we're wanting to do. All of them. This year, we ended up saying, crap, we have to do 3 tracks. And so we do have a 3rd track in the nightclub. And a couple of the speakers were going, why am I stuck in the nightclub? Because these are the rock stars, okay? They're in the nightclub. Today, we're going to have Johnny Christmas. Johnny, are you around? It's before 11 o'clock. Johnny's not around. Who am I kidding? Hudson Harris and Ben Miller. Those will be downstairs. I know on the last day of the con, it's very tempting to leave early. I'm going to tell you, some of the best talks are the last talks. So stick around to the end. You got traffic anyway. Stick around and go play some craps or whatever. And then finally, the people that made this possible, my team over here. I get a little emotional with these guys. This is Parameter Security. Everybody raise your hand. These are the ones that made this happen. This year, they actually said to Renee and I, they said, go relax, enjoy yourselves. And we're like, is that okay? And Becky and Dan and Ben and Jason and all of them said, no, go enjoy yourselves or you're in trouble. Okay. Okay. All right. We got that third track. All right. We got 2 giveaways, and then we have a very, very special speaker coming up. First, winning practical malware analysis, also known as how to do surgery on an alien and bacon tape. The duct tape of the geeks is Robert Guellar, Guellar. Robert's not here. He's outside. Oh, he has 15 seconds or else he loses, and we're giving it to the first person who tweets me. All right, Matt Kaiser. Is Matt Kaiser here? Oh, Lord. See, this is what happens when you only come for day 1. Pick someone else out here. Matthew Olson. I'm starting to feel like you guys are screwing with me here. Because if we're going to... What? Oh, you took his place? All right, come on up. And I know that she did because I was the one emailing you back and forth. I had forgotten about that. So what was your name, young lady? Janice McSwine. Good job, Janice. Here you go. Is Robert back in the room? Nope. All right. Then we're going to go with my phone says Paula Bell. Paula Bell wins the book of PF and bacon duct tape, the official baconiest thing of ShowMeCon.
Thank you.
Until Checkpoint can do a bacon firewall, this will be the most bacon thing around. All right, our next speaker is one I'm very proud to have here. Joey Smith of Schnooks is going to be our next speaker. I've known Joey now for about a couple years since he started over at Schnooks. You'll love this guy. He used to be over at MasterCard. This gentleman went from a forensic investigator to trying to help a company that was having issues. I have been able to peek behind the scenes, and I can tell you that him and his group are one of the top-notch groups in the city. So without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and welcome the CISO and Security Director of Schnooks Incorporated, Joey Smith. Yeah, you just heard a bro bump. What it's like to be in the middle.
Thank you, Dave. One more time for Dave. He's amazing, and what Parameter Security is doing here for all of us. This is my second ShowMeCon, and I have so much fun here just hanging out with Parameter guys and with all the vendors and with all of you guys. And every year I get to meet new people and new faces and then old faces from previous years and previous cons that I've been to. And it's just really, really cool that we have this community of information security professionals that are willing to spend some time out of their week to come here, collaborate with each other, learn about what they're doing, learn about what we're doing, and share ideas. And it's really fun for me to have this opportunity to come up here and talk a little bit about what I'm up to and what my team's up to at Schnooks, as well as just what I've learned in my career in this industry. And it's been so far a wild ride, and I think there's so much more to learn. There's so much more to do, and there's just the sky's the limit with what all of us in this room are doing. And it's a really cool industry that we're in. So, like Dave said, my name's Joey Smith. I'm the Senior Director and CISO for Schnook Markets. I've been there for just about a year and a half now. I came in January of 2014. And was asked to help this company bounce back after a very public and very costly credit card event. And so, I mean, I can talk about that a little bit because it was in the news, and it's nothing that you guys couldn't Google. But our lawyers did look at what I had to say, so cut me a little bit of slack. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. But there's certain things I'm not able to talk to regarding that. So. I'm relatively new to the security industry, or at least I'm definitely new to the speaker circuit, so I want to take just a little bit of time to introduce myself, what I've been doing, and how I've got to where I am now, and maybe where I'm going. So I started, after college, I got hired at a small data recovery company in Edwardsville, Illinois. And I had an electronics technology degree from Southeast Missouri State. That was the first job that called, and it sounded really neat. Like, I get to go in and do hard drive recovery. And I actually got really good at physical hard drive recovery. I could take read-write heads out and spindles out and then make it work long enough to get the data off of it, which is kind of fascinating, but it was a lot of like the same stuff every day. There's just always hard drives that come in, and part of that company, what they had was a computer forensics part, or I guess section. Interestingly enough, it was just the owner of the company started it. Didn't have a whole lot of understanding what computer forensics really was. Just sort of thought it was a money-making opportunity for the company. And I said, that sounds really cool. I want to look into what computer forensics is. So he challenged me to learn about forensics, which I did. I pursued in-case certification and was able to get certified in-case, and then was able to get promoted up in that company to manage the computer forensics department, which sounds really cool, but it was just me, like, handling like clients that would come in. But that's what I got very interested in computer forensics. Like, this is really neat. I'm investigating computers now, and what someone did on their computer is very interesting because for the most part, you can find it. And it's really cool when they try to hide it or delete it or purge it, and most of the time you can find that and point it back to who did what and when. And so that's what got me into forensics. That was mostly kind of like one-off cases, a lot of infidelities, like tell me who my husband's been chatting with and things like that. And then I was able to move on after that to start doing computer forensics for MasterCard, which was an awesome step, working for an awesome, huge payment card company, a technology company out here in O'Fallon, and got put on the incident response team and ended up running the global computer security incident response team. Mostly internal type investigations, HR types of things, but also dealing with, we dealt with the WikiLeaks attack. If you remember back in 2010, MasterCard and Visa, they stopped processing payments for WikiLeaks, and that really pissed Julian Assange off or something, so they DDoSed the networks. And so we were dealing with not only, the internal threat of our employees doing things they probably shouldn't be doing on their computers, but also just the constant external attacks that we were having. So I was doing that. I was in that role for about 5 years at MasterCard, and after that moved into another role called account data compromise, where I really got just thrown into an industry of merchants acquiring banks and issuing banks that have a problem right now, and it's very public in the news. Target, Schnucks, Newman Markets, we keep hearing about it. These credit cards are very lucrative for the criminals to steal. And what this team did was investigate those breach merchants. And we worked very closely with the issuing institutions and the acquiring institutions to figure out what happened, when the malware, when the hack started, when it was remediated, and we'd collect all the MasterCards that were affected by that, and we'd send them to the issuers so they knew how to then protect their card holders. That was the account data compromise team, and that was where I really started to understand like the problem that information security has when it comes to the credit card. There's a static number on the back of that card, and so long as an information is static and it never changes, that means if you use it yesterday, I can use it tomorrow. So I got a good understanding of what that was through that job. And like I said, then I moved into the Schnucks role. I had a pretty good idea of what the event looked like because we investigated it in my old job. They came in and said, we're looking for help. We're looking to build this program out, and I was very honored and still am to come in there and help mature that program. So. A little bit about me. This is my wife, Ashley. I figure I should introduce the family just because I want to get to know you guys. I hope you want to get to know me too. And if not, I got the mic, so you get to listen. So this is my wife, Ashley, and it's we're actually at a Schnucks cooking school, which you can go to. It's a really cool date idea where you get to cook together and learn how to make food. And I was telling her about ShowMeCon. I said, hey, I got asked to speak on security at this cool conference in St. Louis called ShowMeCon, and she's like, oh, that's neat. I said, they just tweeted out that there's this cool 80s party that they're going to do in the first night, and everyone here went to the 80s party last night with the arcades and everything. Yeah, it was pretty fun, and they tweeted out like a few months ago something like, come to the 80s party, dress like you're from the 80s. And I was like, that sounds really cool. I don't know what I should wear. And she, without missing a beat, she goes, well, then maybe you should wear a diaper. And I'm like, oh, all right. So here's my little hacker kids. This is Audrey. She's 4 years old. She's very proficient on the iPad. Like, she will run circles around any of us on the iPad. It's a little bit scary how good kids are at electronic devices now, and it kind of sets the stage for like these kids that we're raising, and like, oh my goodness. Audrey now knows how to go to the computer and type in DisneyJunior.com and start watching Princess Sophia and Jake and the Neverland Pirates and stuff. It's scary. And I was joking with some of my buddies from the St. Charles Cybercrime Group here yesterday. I'm like, she actually types her name better than she writes it. And we kind of realized that's probably true for most of us. Like, I actually type my name better than I write it as well. And this is Logan. He's my 1-year-old, and he's sporting his cool Hacker U hat, and he's very much looking forward to starting a career in incident response or some form of information security, I'm sure. So that's me. I'll be around the rest of the day. I would love to meet the rest of you guys. Please come and find me. Let's keep this conversation going. It's definitely much bigger than the hour that I have to talk to you. What we're talking about today, what I'm going to talk about in the next slides is way more than we can tackle in an hour. So what I'm thinking as I thought about what do I even say to a group this size is really, I don't have all the answers. The reality is you don't have all the answers, but together we're this community that does. So let's continue the collaboration. Let's continue to learn from each other. And maybe what I'm about to share with you and some of the things that I've learned in my career so far can spark interesting debate amongst ourselves to come after this. So please throw your hands up in the air if you have questions throughout, and I'll try to do what I can to address them. So we all know, maybe someone has seen similar slides to this, the attack surface is growing. This is what any security manager or any security analyst is looking at. We have this incredibly huge attack surface now. More and more mobile devices continue to get introduced. Now we've got, like the Internet of Things is kind of a buzzword. So like the microwaves won't be long until they're tweeting something stupid about how they made some popcorn or something, and the refrigerators and you look, 2014, the stats that I found, we had 12.5 billion connected devices. By 2020, 50 billion connected devices based on the trends that we're seeing today. That's more than 7 devices per person. More than 7 devices. So talk about not really having a perimeter for your network anymore, especially whenever you've got your staff of the folks that work at your company out there with 7 connected devices. And of course, they all want them to connect in to your network because they're going to need to have their email and their connection to their drives. So we have this huge growing attack surface that we're challenged to protect. So how do we do that? And that's what I'm going to talk about a lot today. Is how do we mature the information security model to protect this growing surface, this almost impossible task to do? And how do we move to really what we all should want to be doing, which is becoming business aligned? If we're not enabling the business, we're failing at our jobs. If I lock down Schnucks so tight, which we could, we could unplug and bury everything, but we're not going to make any money, and I'm not enabling the business. That's the day that I should be walked out, and we need to find someone else. So it's our jobs as security professionals, and I hope you agree that we're here to enable the business. We're here to make sure that they can still do what they do best, which is whatever it was that they do, right? So Schnucks sells groceries. We're all about nourishing people's lives. We want to make sure that you can come in the store, get what you need, get your groceries, and get out. And there's all kinds of really cool things we can do to make that a better experience that we're looking at, and like any of our competitors would be. But from an information security standpoint, we're here to make sure that they're still successful in doing that. So typical information security journey here. I know there's a ton of different companies that y'all work for, so where it is on your maturity chart might be different, but for the most part, and I'm really talking about a lot of the level 1, level 2 merchants, they're somewhere between a compliance-based security model and a business-aligned security model. What I'm looking to do, and what I want to really talk about, is how do we move from that compliance-based model to where we're aligned with what it is the business wants to do. And I believe that journey comes through starting to understand your threats and starting to understand your risks. Whenever you start looking at those things through the lens of threat and risk, and you can start providing the guidance and the consulting to the other arms of your business that we're looking at things through threat and risk, we begin to start to move towards that business aligned model. So as I think about these two slides that I just put up there, I realized that they're kind of opposite, right? In one corner we have how the attack surface is growing, and in the other corner we have how we as information security professionals are supposed to be business aligned. So it begs the question, how am I supposed to be business aligned whenever I keep getting more and more and more devices and I'm supposed to somehow figure out how to protect, how to patch, how to connect in, and we're supposed to enable the business to be able to do all these things, yet by, like it was, we got people in our company that want to bring in 7 devices. I mean, we have maybe your C-suite might be the same, where I can't just have an iPad at the office and I don't want to take my iPad home because it's just, I don't know, it's heavy. So I got to have my iPad at home too. I got to have my laptop at home, and we're getting more and more of these types of things. So how do you make your information security program business aligned whenever we continue to get more and more and more stuff to protect? So my answer to that is I don't really know. I hope that can be an interesting conversation as the rest of the day and months go on. But I'm citing a person that I met named Raf Loss, and I put his Twitter handle up there, who's wrote an article about this and has given me some insight into it and how we do this. He talks about 5 things: is to be able to connect these two things together. Understand your high value assets. What are those things? Where do they rest? What the business feels is most important to them from a legal and compliance perspective. Then take those things and understand your business requirements around them. And then now with those 2 things, you can begin to develop your security strategy. And I kind of think maybe that's the most important part of one of these. Once you have that business security strategy, then yeah, you can start doing the validation and you can start doing the revisiting it and testing it. But in my opinion, that's been probably the best I've gotten as far as trying to understand how do I still enable this business while we continue to have to support the infrastructure needs and the technology needs that they're asking infrastructure to deliver. So Raf is a guy who works for Optiv now, and has helped. He wrote this article, and I thought it was kind of fascinating. So definitely, let's keep that topic open, because I think that's something that we're all, at the end of the day, interested in. Is we're told to support the business, yet at the same time, in a lot of ways, we really do sometimes get in the way as security professionals, because we're trying to protect it so much that we end up hurting it. Okay, so let's look at compliance. And again, this goes back to the slide of how do we move from compliance to business aligned. So I find this to be really interesting. As I was researching for this presentation, I started really to do some more deep dives into what does PCI actually say about compliance, at least from a credit card side. I'm not really focusing so much on the HIPAA compliance and the other compliance frameworks right now, but this is just a screenshot directly from the Visa website. And it's funny because maybe you can't read it, but it's like, it says merchants processing over 6 million Visa transactions annually, and then they fall under a level 1. And then I have 4 bullet points. So, all right, I process over 6 million Visas. To me, it makes this seem really easy. I only got to do 4 things to be compliant. Sweet, like I can do that, no problem. And then it's not even really super clear. What if some of I process over 6 million transactions, but not all of them are Visa? It's between Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and then that over 6. According to this, I'm maybe still not a level 1 merchant. You can go into the PCI Council website, and find similar language that's kind of equally as confusing, and I can understand the problem that this is causing from the C-level, the CEO and the COOs of companies, because they're looking at this and they're going, that seems easy enough. We can do that. We can do quarterly scans. It doesn't actually say here that you have to pass the scan. You just got to do quarterly scan. Can do that, and eventually we'll get our report of compliance. It's pretty cool. So let me look, based on what I'm learning from even Visa's website, and then I'm not calling Visa out or any of the card brands out. It's definitely, I'm just saying I can see how this can be confusing for the folks that aren't necessarily security minded but are driving the business from where are we going to put our funds. So here is actually what a compliance model would look like according to that, what we just learned from what Visa's site says and what PCI would agree with. So in a given year, I've got month 1 through month 12, and we've got 4 quarterly scans, seems easy enough, and then also we got to do 1 pen test a year. Sweet. And then in the red, I've highlighted typically for a level 1 merchant, if you're not doing certain things with your credit card data, you're not encrypting it, or you haven't had a way to reduce your scope, it takes about 5-6 months to get through a PCI compliance lifecycle. You got your QSA, and you got to interview the various teams. You got to get the evidence back from the team. It takes about 5 or 6 months to go through that process. So in a given year, this is what makes me compliant. And what happens after this? Like, I'm all happy. Now I got on my rock, right? So now I have a rock, and I look good. And then the maybe the CIO who isn't as security minded as we all are will go, we got the report of compliance. So we're secure. Let's move on to some of the other initiatives, like plugging in more of those iPads or plugging in more of those computers that people need around. Because we're compliant, we're good. Now, I probably don't have to convince this group of people that that's a broken model, right? Why is that a broken model? Because the second I run a scan and I pass, looks great, everything's good, I submit that over to the PCI and they say, yep, looks great. And then a firewall rule changes, or a patch doesn't deploy, or something else changes, suddenly I'm out of compliance again. But the reports that I just got maybe a month ago says I am compliant. So that's where there's kind of a breakdown. And it's up to us to start to really preach this message to our staffs and our leaders at our organization to say, compliance doesn't cut it anymore. Compliance is a great framework. It really is. If you are PCI compliant, I really believe that your credit cards will not get breached. I think it's that good of a framework. It's just really hard to continue to maintain. So you have to build a program and put the controls in place where that will be maintained throughout the entire year. So let's take a look at how I've approached that problem in my career. So I've taken information security and I've broken it down really into 3 groups. We have threat and vulnerability management, information security operations, and governance, risk, and compliance. And one of the things that is maybe a pet peeve word for me is just compliance in general. Like, you'll see some security teams are actually called IT security and compliance. That's a team I'm on. It just bothers me. Like, let's remove compliance from our vocabulary. Compliance doesn't equal security. Security will be followed by compliance, right? So each one of these teams should have different focus areas, and that way we're all focusing on those things, and this continues to drive how we can move to a business line model. So threat and vulnerability management. Their focus is threats. What are the threats that are relevant to my particular industry? The threats that were relevant to me whenever I was at MasterCard are very different than the threats that are relevant to me when I'm at Schnucks. It's entirely different industries, right? Some of them are going to be the same, right? Everyone dealt with the Heartbleed thing and the different vulnerabilities that are going to come down that are across just platforms that everyone uses. But I'm not at Schnucks, don't have the same threat that I might have at MasterCard, where I'm going to really tick off WikiLeaks for stopping payments at our small little grocery store in the Midwest. Whereas that was a huge threat for MasterCard. So we're actively pursuing threats. What is the social media saying about us? And again, not to say that we shouldn't be doing that at a different company, but the focus for that, again, is what are my threats and how are they relevant to me? Operations. These are the guys that do all the detection and response type stuff. Really the cool technology stuff that probably most of you in this room are the most interested in. And their focus, like I said, is detection and response. It's on that team to understand based on what they're hearing from the threat team and from the risk teams, the attacks that are coming in, and they're detecting them, and then they have a response plan in place, right? It's not about if you get breached anymore, it's about when. So is there a framework that you have, and is it tested that you have an ability to detect these things, and you have an ability to respond to them quickly? Someone said in an earlier session that I was at, talking about, isn't it a much better story to tell if you catch that hack in 3 hours than in 3 years or 3 months or whatever it is? And it's absolutely true. And it's absolutely on operations to have that detection and response focus and that detection and response mindset for what they're doing. Okay, lastly, governance, risk, and compliance. Their focus is not compliance, it's risk. And what does this risk look like for this particular company? What is our risk threshold, so to speak? So I made up a couple of different mottos for each one of these teams, and I'll read them to you. So if there's a motto to my threat and vulnerability management team, it would be, here's what we do on a daily basis at a very high level. We minimize the threat landscape by proactively understanding the existing threat adversaries and how they can negatively affect the organization. Ties into what risk is doing. So taking that information, risks, and then understand and identify the security risks that exist across the organization and provide oversight in defining the business tolerance for those risks. There's certain risks that we have to accept, but what's our tolerance for it? How much of that risk are we going to accept? Or what can we do to mitigate that risk? Lastly, detection and response. Respond to known and unknown security threats, risks, and vulnerabilities that could harm the business. So those three things together, working hand in hand in unison, that's how you're able to become a world-class information security team, in my opinion. And is this absolutely right? Maybe. Currently, it has been working for me. Is this the only way to do it? Absolutely not. I'd be very curious to hear from you all how it is and how it's being organized in your industries or organizations. But this, in my experience, has been a good framework to kind of start and kick off what it is that the individual folks on my team have their focus on in a daily basis. So let's take a look at this, and let's mature that earlier timeline of just simple compliance and checkbox compliance and checkbox security to an actual maybe framework that can move to a business aligned model and have compliance follow what you're doing rather than just trying to keep up with compliance. So, 3 things that I need to be able to do that. Obviously, people, process, and technology. I can't do it alone. You can't just send one really awesome guy and you hire the coolest pen tester, the best security analyst that you've ever met. Have them come in and say, secure me. It just doesn't work like that. So you have to start understanding that it's going to take people, process, and technology to be able to do that. So in this timeline that I'm going to do, I'm going to speak to those 3 things. I'm not going to name individual technologies because there's a variety of different things. There's obviously no silver bullet. No one technology is going to solve all the problems. In fact, all the technologies really still doesn't solve all the problems, but it still brings us beyond that simple compliance model. So I took kind of a look at what it is that I would want to do in a given year to start to move that team from a compliance-based mindset to looking at things through the risk and threat lens. And so this was like the best picture I could find for that. It's like it's a journey, right? Everyone would probably agree. This is a journey. So the only problem I have with this picture is it's one person. And he's got a long road to walk. So with like the magic of just copy and pasting, I put it the same guy over and over and over to indicate that it takes more than one. It's not just one person. We all have different areas of expertise and different areas of leadership that we can bring to the overall community that will help us build this out. So let's take a look. Rather than doing quarterly scans, because it's required, I just didn't even put scans in here anymore. Scans should be something that we're doing weekly, daily if we can. Because vulnerabilities continue to pop up in systems. Not we hit the go button on the patch and it takes 90% of your network and you're feeling good. There's still 10% of the network that didn't get that patch. And that vulnerability scans will tell us about that. Then we can go in and start to remediate those types of things. So I didn't even put the whole compliance thing of you got to do your 4 scans in here. That is now just an assumption. We are scanning constantly. we're getting very good at it. We're learning every day about it. Would love to set you guys up with our threat and vulnerability management guy to talk shop a little bit on what's worked for us, what is working for you, and share stories about how we could be better at that. But certainly, I didn't even want to put it in this type of framework because it should be a given. I shouldn't be told to do it quarterly whenever really we should be doing this constantly. We're constantly scanning for vulnerabilities. But pen testing, pen testing is awesome. This is like we are hacking our own network so we can figure out what to prevent from happening or how it happens so we can prevent it from happening from a bad guy, right? So rather than doing one pen test a year, because PCI compliance or another compliance framework tells me that I should, let's start doing quarterly pen tests, at the least. Maybe we do more. If you're an organization that's fortunate enough to have full-time pen testers on staff, I'd let them just go. Just do it. Anything you can get your hands on, just work very hard not to shut the business down, because that makes it a bad day for your boss. But go. And one of my guys tells me a lot, like he loves his job because I let him do that. Just find out what you can get into. And hopefully you can't get into it, but just using simple things that aren't going to hurt the network, just tell me what you can get into. As you guys know, pen testers can be expensive. So there's opportunities and there's different companies out there, Parameter, that can do this stuff for you for maybe even much cheaper than you could bring in a full-time person. So leverage your contacts in the industry and some of the different services that different companies provide. So I'm going to let this populate for a minute here, and let's look at a lot of the other things that we can roll out besides just a simple compliance framework in a given in 1 year. Now, is this maybe you could accomplish more, maybe you could accomplish less. In my opinion, this is probably about what you could do in a 12-month time frame if you just started in January and you had to accomplish this in the next 12 months. So. Social engineering, that's something that not a lot of companies do. I think they have like this false sense of trust with their data centers or any of their secure facilities that they're good because they're locked down and we log it or whatever. Has anyone ever thought about just hiring a social engineer or heck, just maybe one of your guys that face isn't as well known around the company, just see if you can get in? And that's an awesome story to tell because the reality is, as most of us in this room know, you probably could get into that room, or you could breach the physical perimeter controls around getting in, and it ends up being a really good story to tell the folks who can sign the checkbook to say, let's put some additional controls to stop the social engineering. And by the way, it's also really, really fun to do. Let me talk about one of the moves that I made early on. What was understanding, A, that I don't know at all, B, that I have strengths in certain areas, and I definitely have a lot of weaknesses in others. So I hired a manager of information security operations. And I specifically picked a person that is not kind of opposite of me, definitely from a mindset type way, but also just from a background knowledge. So where's Brett? Come up here to the stage, Brett. I want to go through an exercise of what? Brett's not here. He's at the bar. And I think it's and if you're in the position of security management, this is what I did has been working very well. And I'm tipping my hat to my manager of InfoSec operations now because we have a very good rapport. Yeah, watch your step. And my history and my background in information security is incident response, computer forensics, that sort of stuff. Brett came from a networking background. He's very good on understanding layer 2, layer 3, those types of things, which is definitely my weakness. And what's an interesting thing that Brett and I are beginning to get very good at is just the difference in how the stories that we tell. So my job is to go to the C-suite and say, okay, we might have this. We have this thing called Facebook. It's very abused in our business because a lot of people are looking at it all day. I'm sure it's a similar story for all of you. And we have these apps and all the Facebook apps, and it can introduce all this risk. What I'd like to do is take Facebook. Maybe we still allow part of it, but we can block certain parts. And then we have Brett over in the corner who just just gotten really good at just like, if someone were to ask you, Brett, hey, can I use Facebook? Like, what's your response?
Hell no.
So You can go sit down.
Use your phone.
Use your phone.
Not my network.
Yeah, Brett's the guy who's like, that's not going to happen on my network, which I love. So it's very good, and it's been it's been a benefit for me to have a guy like Brett to come in and we can complement each other in those roles. So I can go and talk to the strategy group about, or the higher up folks about why we may or may not want to do this, and then in the back have someone who's supporting it in a different way. And ultimately, every single time there's that balance of how it ends up making sense for us and how that works for us, and every time it still ends up reducing the risk from where we were before. So I probably won't go through all these, but app scan and source code scanning, another huge thing if you have developers on staff that are developing their own code, or maybe you're even using third-party software. What are you doing to scan that stuff? Tell me about the vulnerabilities that are in there. Is it checking for the typical things like cross-site scripting and vulnerabilities like that? A lot of companies I see aren't doing that, and that's a huge, huge risk. Start doing yearly gap analysis. Understand where your gaps are. I think it's interesting because it's like people don't want to bring in the social engineers or the gap analysis, those types of things, because they don't want to really learn about how bad off they really are. And I say that not that you're bad off if you're not doing it or doing it, but these are opportunities now for you to make it better. What else did I miss here? Under your SIM. SIM is very difficult. In my experience, been very difficult. It's getting all these logs. If something bad were to happen, it would be logged, but are you ever going to see it because it's buried in thousands and thousands and millions of other logs? So how do you actually get some value out of that? So based on the size of the company, certain companies can take that in-house. They have the staff and they have the ability to do that. Other companies might outsource that to bigger shops that can provide that monitoring and that tuning for you. My advice would be, before you throw it, if you're looking at outsourcing your SIM, before you throw it over the fence to the third-party provider who's doing that for you, have it tuned. If my guys can't understand what the heck's going on, neither are these guys, no matter how much that vendor tells you they're going to get it. I really do not believe that I could throw over a SIM device that's never been tuned at all over the fence. I'm sure they'd take my money, but I don't think they'd actually provide me any value, and I'd just be spending money for nothing. So make sure it's tuned to the point where they're comfortable taking it on before you actually throw it over the fence to them. That's my advice on that. I put phishing awareness, really overall information security awareness. I think that's going to be one of the hottest new jobs in our community, in our industry, because it's so important. At the end of the day, the people that sit behind the keyboards are our first line of defense. And if they don't know what they're doing, if they're so click happy, we're at the mercy of that. Very challenging from a retail industry. Not as challenging when I came from the technology side of things. When I talked about how to hidden embedded links inside things at MasterCard, everyone's light bulb, oh yeah, I get that, I get it. Try to tell someone in the retail industry about that, and they just don't understand why they can't click the link anymore. So it's a very a great opportunity. There's a lot of really cool new tools and new ideas, and I'll share an idea that we came up with here in the next slide. All right, I'm still in year one. Jeez. All right, year two. Notice my PCI assessment time frame went down. So there's strategies that you can do to help that go down. It also saves you a lot of money because the scope of the PCI assessment is how much you're going to be paying. There's certain things, I won't provide any actual advice. I would say contact your PCI auditors. But there's things you can do with encryption, hardware, software encryption, making sure you don't have the keys in sight and everything, that will limit your scope of PCI. If you can begin to do that, suddenly you're not doing this huge 6-month PCI assessment. That can literally be turned into maybe a 1-month exercise. Your QSA would come in and say, let me see, where are you storing your credit cards, and you just don't have them. So it's not to say you don't need to be PCI compliant anymore. Those things still count, but he's not spending 6 months taking up my team's time, taking up infrastructure's time, taking up legal's time, because we've done things to lower that scope. So that's another thing that I would be focusing on if you're looking at maturing beyond the compliance model, is what can you do to lower your scope from a PCI perspective? It's out there. Merchants are doing it now. And actually for one of the first times as in information security, you can actually make an ROI a statement with it. If we can do this, then I'm not spending so much on PCI compliance anymore because the scope got down so much. Okay, same thing. We're going to keep doing pen testings throughout the year. We're still hiring people to do this. We're still buying different technologies. Social engineering every year because that's so much fun. Access control and identity management. Huge, huge undertaking. If you don't know what level of access your folks have, and not just on your teams, but throughout the organization, that's a huge gap. That's a huge risk. So how do you understand and what's the process and the policies in place for if I am today in this role and then I get promoted or moved over to another role? Was that previous access taken away and do I have the new level of access now? What if I get terminated and I'm no longer with the company? Is there a process in place for removing that access? You need a very mature framework around access control. So I put definitely start thinking about access control and identity management. Not that this has to be year 2. Again, I'm not saying that this is the absolute way to do anything, but I put it here, and I think it's very important and just a huge undertaking. And I would be interested in talking with you guys about how you do that and share some of the things that we've been doing in that space. Mobile device management, another huge one. What all these iPhones and iPads and Android devices that continue to plug into the network. How do you control those things? How do you make sure that they only have a limited level of access that they need? Is it really worth it? It's a very expensive solution. Maybe active sync type thing is good enough for what you're doing, but you got to look at it through the threat and the lens, or in the risk lens. I saw a question back here. Yeah. I can't really hear what you're saying. I'm pretending like I can, but I can't. Yeah, okay. Where do you find access management falling underneath the umbrella of your information security team? For me, I would put that under operations. So what I would have under operations is, well, Brett could tell you, is incident response, access control, and Brett, what's the last one? Because I'm on stage and I'm blanking now. He's at the bar again. Incident response, what? At the bar. But I would put it under operations, personally. Does it have to be there? No. Maybe, I think there's certain industries, certain companies that might not even have that under an information security arm. I certainly would. I think that's 100% security. So for my team, access control falls under the operations team. All right, year 3. This was the toughest slide I had because I'm thinking, how do you build, if I have 3 years to move from a compliance model to a business aligned model, like what do I do in year 3? And I kind of just sort of started throwing like a bunch of people, like let's just hire more analysts because I'd like to stand up a security operations center. We want to do cool 24/7 monitoring type stuff. But the reality here is if you're an information security professional and you think you know what you're going to be doing 3 years down the road, you're fooling yourself. This industry changes so quickly that there's just no way you're really going to know what you're going to be accomplishing 3 years from now. Next year, 12 months, I got a pretty good idea. Year 2, it's getting a little bit foggier, but I think I can still start to get some things done in year 2. But the reality is, year 3, there's going to be new technologies, there are going to be new attack vectors, there's going to be maybe entirely new devices that have been introduced that we haven't quite, as an industry, wrapped our heads around yet. So it's tough to say what we'd be doing in year 3. You notice, like I put in, like certain things like if you're outsourcing your SIM, maybe by year 3, if you're able to hire people, look at phasing it out so you can have everything in house, and then you can manage it entirely internally, which could save you, so offset some other costs. So year 3 is definitely one of those things. If you're asked by your CEO, what are you going to be doing 3 years from now? It's just a really tough answer or question to answer. Policy enforcement and people. These are probably, in my opinion, maybe the 2 biggest challenges that we have as information security professionals. Maybe I might actually also put up their email. I think our 2 biggest threats are people and email, and you can't get rid of either one of those things. But policy enforcement and people. So probably every company here has some sort of legal arm that's giving them guidance and oversight. And legal's really, really good at making policy. But legal's not so good at enforcing policy. They're leaning on the information security professionals to be able to do that. So if I have a policy that says you can't look at offensive material online, usually legal's cool with it. They're like, yeah, we got the policy out there. But is there anything blocking anybody from looking at that? And yeah, we've all signed off that we won't do it. But how do you enforce that policy? So I've blurted out just a snippet of a system use policy, and everything's written down and it looks great. Like you would read it and go, absolutely, we don't want to allow any of that stuff. But if you actually look at your networks, are you doing anything to actually enforce that system use policy? And this is your opportunity. If you're not enforcing one of these things, I mean, you're going to start, if you look, you might start to see people playing internet games. Of course, porn is like, people do that on their work computers. The constant streaming of YouTube, Facebook, Napster, Skype, all these things, anonymizers are so easy to use. If you start looking at what's coming out of your network and what your actual employees at your company are doing, you'll start to see that they're blatantly breaking this policy that's been set up and that they've maybe even signed off every year. And it's a really, really good opportunity for you to knock it out by citing to your legal team that this is actually in violation of the policy that they likely set up in the first place. And if you want to partner in getting the technology you need to start blocking some of those things, approach your legal team like this. Say, here's what we're finding on our network that is a direct violation of what is already written down. That's how you can turn a lawyer's light bulb on and go, oh, yeah, well, so it means if it's written down, it doesn't mean it's actually prevented. Well, no, humans still do whatever they want until you help force them not to. Okay, this slide kind of goes off topic a little bit, but people loved it, and I will be completely honest, I had like 5 beers whenever I made this slide, and it turned into be this really cool slide, and everyone's like, every time you give a presentation, you have to put it in there because it's really neat. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference of Onnet and Offnet, and what are you doing to protect your mobile devices, your laptops, specifically your laptops and your phones, whenever they go home for the day. So bear with me here as I take you through this little story. All right. Corporations will spend millions and millions of dollars to protect their infrastructure and their network. They've hired us in this room. They pay us in this room to do our jobs. We have all this security operations. We maybe now got this great threat and vulnerability management team. We're doing governance risk compliance. Perhaps we have disaster recovery. We're doing all these things to protect our data and our networks, and it looks great. So we're pretty well protected. But we have all these happy employees that we allow to connect into our network and do their jobs. Of course we do. And then these happy employees, they get in their cars, and then they go home. And they take those same assets that they're plugging into our network, and they plug them into their home network. Why? Who knows? Because they want to either they want to do their job, or you know, they can't surf porn at work, so I can go home and do it. So whenever that happens and you don't have any Offnet protection, now you're allowing that happy employee to get some sort of malware, some sort of virus, or something bad on his computer that he got on a network that you never protected. He gets in his car, he goes back to our corporation, plugs back into our network, and essentially has circumvented every single control that we've been spending millions and millions of dollars on. It's a huge, huge problem, and it's a story that you have to be telling your management and the legal side and the C-suite of your companies of what are we doing to protect our assets when they go off net. And this is the story that I use and had fun building this slide with it, but it's a problem, and we'll see it. When I was doing incident response, it was a big problem. People would go home, the controls lessened on a different network, and they come back to a very well protected network and immediately were circumvented. So something to be mindful of as well. Okay. When it comes to Chinooks, I can tell you a few things that we actually are doing. A couple things that I'm very proud of that we're doing that are coming to my team within probably the next five months or so. We are building an information security operations center. This is the blueprint for it. I've got room for 6 people. We're facing this video wall. We've got 9 55-inch TVs that we're going to be porting our different controls in. Ultimately, building this out to be a 24/7 monitoring. We want to know every single thing that's coming into our network, and we want to know every single thing that's going out of our network. kind of cool stuff. Here's some photos that I added of some of the cool, I think it's cool anyways, cool furniture where it's going to be like surrounded in whiteboards, like a really neat and fun place to collaborate. We can lock ourselves in this room and geek out about what's going on. We can see what's going on in the network. And it's something that we're very proud of that's going to be stood up, like I said, probably in the next, hopefully we can start building by the end of this month. A couple other ideas I've had when it comes to security awareness. So we did this thing called Operation Disrupt when I was at MasterCard, and it was a really, really cool, a cool way to help your developers understand that they can introduce vulnerability into the network. And what we did was basically it was a capture the flag event, but it was all internal, and we used our own internal MasterCard applications to do it. So our security ops team, or our security engineering team rather, went and got the applications. They introduced some vulnerabilities into them that obviously weren't previously there. Some of them easily exploitable, others more challenging to get to. And then we set up our own capture the flag game, and it was called Operation Disrupt. And it was marketed, and then we let the developers in the room and let them do this whole CTF thing. And it was amazing. Like it was like their eyes widened and the light bulbs went off and said, "Oh my God! Like I'm responsible for coding things that don't introduce this because into our environment." We actually showed them the danger of or how important it is that they do their job and they do it right. Really cool idea. One thing like the two business card things that I have here is something that I introduced at Schnucks. Like my biggest pet peeve, it's like one of the easiest things to do is lock your screen. If you get up and you need to go to the bathroom, just lock your screen. So no one's in trouble for not locking your screen, but drop a business card on their desk. Like your screen's been locked by information security. Or the other one says like, "Thanks, we noticed that your screen was locked." Just simple, easy, and it's been very effective. We did some metrics and we saw screen locks going way up whenever people weren't at their desk. Let me talk a little bit about what Catch of the Quarter is. This is a program that literally costs my budget $400 a year. $400. This is the cheapest security control that money can buy, and it's probably one of the most effective things that we've done. It's called Catch of the Quarter. You could spend. Please take this idea. It wasn't even mine originally either. So feel free to take it, make it work for your organization. What we do is we give the monetary incentive of a $100 Schnucks gift card for telling information security about something suspicious that you may have seen on your computer or someone else. So if my mouse is moving around and I'm not the one moving it, that seems weird. I'm going to report that to information security. I think I got a virus. I'm going to report that to information security. I noticed that, or tell me good things. I got up to use the restroom and I locked my screen. I'm going to report that to information security. I think that I received a phone call from someone trying to get information out of me that was totally bogus. I'm going to report that to information security. We give all these submissions, and we are now averaging in a given quarter probably about 1,200 different submissions of people just after that $100. But what that is for me and my team is that's 1,200 different things that we wouldn't have otherwise known about that we can now look into. Yep, the majority is absolutely false positives. It wasn't, most of the time, user error. We've had the people, "My computer won't turn on. I think I'm hacked." Well, is it plugged in? Oh, yeah. But these are the opportunities that now we have to start to understand that. And in that information, we have found things that are of major concern, and we'll go and we'll remediate. And I'm thinking, had we not had this program that was $400, we would have never known about it. Or we would have found out about it and maybe it was a little bit too late. So a really good idea there. And then market the crap out of it. This is the guy's name's Bob. He won the Catch of the Quarter. So at this point, this is Heather. She's on our governance risk compliance team, and she runs the whole Catch of the Quarter and the security awareness. Please find her and talk security awareness with her. She's got lots of really cool and creative ideas. he wins, he gets his $100 gift card, and then we basically, the poor winner, we just splatter him everywhere. This guy's awesome. He turned in. We tell the story about what he actually did and how much it protected us, whether it really did that much or not. It doesn't matter. It's the story you tell. So we really just like broadcasted it. Like I was thinking, I don't, if you guys are familiar with the Hunger Games, like this is like Katniss at this point. We're just using you. You're the winner of Catch of the Quarter. So you're just a pawn now in my information security awareness program. And at least you have $100, so go shopping. And it all comes back to the company, which is also good. But $400. $400. And we're getting 1,200 submissions every quarter of stuff we wouldn't have known about. Awesome, awesome program. That is my time. I appreciate you letting me come up here and speak to you guys. I will leave, and I want to bring up Dave again. What he said yesterday resonated with me so much that right now we're an information security. We are an information security. Help me out here. I'm blank. Unity and profession. We are an information security community. We have the opportunity to become an information security industry. And I think it's so cool what Parameter announced yesterday, what they're going to be doing. I think it's even cooler that idea can start here in St. Louis with us here at ShowMeCon. And I would like to invite all of you to be part of that with Parameter. I'm putting my hand in the air. Let me be part of that, Dave, because I think that's an awesome idea. I think you hit something on the head there. We need to stop being a community, and we need to start moving into the industry. We have a huge opportunity ahead of us. The world is changing as we know it when it comes to information security. And how cool would it be if us in this room, were part of changing it? And how much cooler would it be if it came out of the city of St. Louis? That's awesome stuff. Thanks again for your time. Thanks again, Parameter. I'm Joey. I'll be around the rest of the week. Let's keep the conversation going. Thanks.